called Wild in Art, and we're doing a project this summer with Birmingham Children's Hospital called the Big Hoot. So it's all about owls. So what my organisation does is we do public art trails in major cities all over the world, in Sao Paulo in Brazil, Sydney in Australia, Liverpool, London. We've been trying to do an event in Birmingham for about 6 years, and we finally got the right partner at Children's Hospital. So here's some pictures. Basically what we do is we create fibreglass sculptures of various animals and creatures, and we get different artists and community organisations to decorate them. So here's some pictures of the Olympic mascots trail that we did in London for the Olympics. We didn't design this sculpture, I know there's sort of divided opinion. But we commissioned all the artists and we cited them and did a trail throughout London over the Olympics. Here's some pictures, some other ones that we've done recently. We've recently done a project in London with Transport for London with their Route Master bus. We did a project in London with some book benches with the National Literacy Trust. So as you can see all there, the idea is that they're painted or they're decorated in different ways, different styles, and then we essentially do an art trail throughout the cities. So there's going to be, and what they do basically, it's ultimately these will get auctioned off raising money for charity. So the public art trail will be out for 12 weeks over the summer. So in the process we've got about 98, close to be 99, then 100 owls that have been decorated by different artists, and then on this particular occasion there's going to be an artist that's going to come and work with some residents from in and around Erdington, this area, to create a design which is unique for this area. Because what's happened with a lot of the other ones is, so I'll show you some pictures of the owl. So this is a picture of the sculpture that's been decided on for Birmingham. So it's based on an eagle owl. The reason we chose an owl, and a lot of people say, why didn't you do a bull, why didn't you do King Kong? There were lots of thought that went into this, and there have been some rare sightings of an eagle owl a few years ago up in Sutton Coldfield that made the news, and it was a very rare thing that these kind of owls have been seen. So we decided to basically choose an owl because A, it was child friendly, and our charity partner was Children's Hospital. And also, owls tend to be on trend in terms of people, you know, you always see owls in shops and in designs, artist designs, because the idea is, as well as doing the large ones, we're going to make some small figurines as well, which is going to raise additional money for the Children's Hospital. We also felt that because there's a lot of work that got into the recent library, some more examples of designs there, because a lot of work got into the recent library, there were quite a lot of links to symbolism, to learning and sort of wisdom and those kind of things. And also this year is the 750th anniversary of Parliament, and a collective noun for owls is the Parliament of Owls. So you see more than one owl together, it's called a Parliament of Owls, so there were quite links to that as well. Because we're doing because we're doing a schools programme as well, and we've got smaller versions of the owls that are going into schools. There's 120 different schools that are currently working on them, so there's nice links that they can do to their curriculum about Parliament and democracy being in this kind of year. So that's why we chose an owl. You know, it's not everyone's favourite, but as a sculpture it's one of my favourites that we've done. The artists are really enjoying it. As you can see it there, you know, these owls, when they're not on concrete plinths, are about 5'4" high. But what will happen is when they go sighted, they'll be put on a concrete plinth, which is about 40 centimetres high, so they're going to be about 6 foot. The reason we put them on concrete plinths is because we don't want people to steal them, or take them home, or throw them in the river, or throw them in the canal, or anything like that, basically, because two people, when they're not on a concrete plinth, two people can pick them up. When they're on a concrete plinth, they're about half a tonne. So you've got to be pretty determined if you want to move it. Yeah. So, this is another example of a work in progress one that's not quite finished yet. You can see that's been done in mosaic. So this particular project, the idea for this came from a series of consultations with looked after children that worked at children's hospitals, that based in different children's centres up and down Birmingham. And then they came up with this design of sort of children sort of holding hands, and then the participants have been helping the artists basically decorate this owl at the moment. And then this is going to go in a really sort of busy location, and the idea is to try and raise awareness of people that want to be adoptive or sort of foster parents. So essentially what will happen when people see this owl, there'll be a plaque on the plinth that says this owl was created by artist Caroline Jaruana, working with looked after children from throughout Birmingham. If you are interested in being a foster or adoptive parent, call this number. So it's like a mini advert for that. So there's lots of stories behind these ones, and I think the community ideas are really interesting. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort of see if any of you wonderful ladies, I've heard many good things, I've seen some of your work, it's amazing by the way, so yeah, keep up the good work, would want to be involved in the design process of this particular owl that's going to be sited in Erdington. So, as I say, the objectives of the project is to touch the lives of everybody in Birmingham with a mass participation event, and then ultimately we're looking to raise considerable funds for the Children's Hospital at the end. As I say, there's going to be about 100 owls in total. I expect about 95 of those will go into auction in October. The other 5 will remain in the communities, and I know that Jaguar's quite keen for this particular owl to remain in the community here, as opposed to going to the auction, so there'll be like a lasting legacy. And I think particularly with the work that Patrice is doing with this sort of Perry Common and I, there's possible links between the 2 projects really. So as I say, there'll be 100 owls completed. There will be a trail map. So once all the owls are sited, and say we get to 100, there'll be a critical mass trail in the city centre, but there's also going to be satellite trails out in the districts. Because the idea is, obviously, we want to ensure that the project is involving all the people in Birmingham as opposed to just a city centre event. There's a lot of people that just don't go into the city centre. So we work very hard to ensure that some of the trails go out into the district. So there's going to be a mini trail in Erdington, the large owls, but also some of the school owls that have been decorated. There's a trail over in Ladywood, there's one in Sutton Coldfield, there's one down in Northfield. So there's little satellite trails throughout the city. Because what we find as well with our projects is that because we're working with a children's hospital, they're really keen to get people to be more active and sort of really promote the sort of health and well-being agenda. Because what we find is when people go and physically see the owls without knowing it, they do a little bit of exercise that they might not do otherwise. It's a free activity where all the owls are sighted. The rules is that they need to be free for people to go and see, and they need to be available for people to go and see 7 days a week. So there's a lot of work going behind the scenes now, getting permissions from the council, parish people, commercial businesses to ensure that we've got permission to site these owls in various locations throughout the city. Speaking quite fast, has anybody questions?
How long does it take to make one?
It all depends. It depends on the complexity of the design. That mosaic one that I showed you earlier, she's been working on that for about 3 weeks. Not full time, but she's been doing an hour here, an hour here. I'd say it probably takes about between 3 and 7 full days. And that's obviously when you develop the design to start with, because some of the artists are working in acrylics, some of them are working in spray paint, some of them are working in mosaic, some of them are working in mixed media and doing a montage. And so for this particular project, what the artist is thinking, and I'll show you some examples of the artist's work, is, so these are some examples of the artist that's been commissioned to work on this particular project. He's renowned for doing portraits. And also what he does, some of his work is, he basically does a lot of research into historical references to his main piece of work. So this particular piece of work here is based on heroes from around the Digbeth area. So this was a famous architect, I can't remember his name, if he was here, he would do. He was a famous architect that designed all the buildings in Digbeth. And so what he's put in the background of it basically is lots of his old designs and sort of architectural drawings of the buildings that he designed to kind of put it into context, and also newspaper cuttings related to some of the work that he did. So what the artist would like, the possible idea of doing is doing a similar kind of design for this particular owl, because there's such a really interesting story around sort of Perry Common and the way that sort of Hoot Launch Housing Association was formed, you know, in the sense that, you know, that these houses were built and then there was a situation where a lot of the residents might lose their houses, and there were a lot of people that really rallied to basically make sure that a really special thing happened. Obviously off the back of that, the housing associations were created, and there were probably a lot of people that were involved in that nobody recognised the faces of. So what we're keen to do really is try and sort of pull out some of the real sort of local heroes that were involved in that, but also in today's stories, to basically try and create a design that represents those as well. And then also we're thinking about the possibility of you know, the possibility of sort of doing individual drawings on A3 that might be individuals, that might be little poems, that might be stories, that might be pictures of buildings that sort of resonate with people on a local business. So we could basically get a montage on the owl that is really representative and unique to this particular area. So the artist is going to be hosting 2 one-hour design sessions over at sort of Perry Common Community Hall on Thursdays, the 14th and 28th of May, between 1 and 3. And so we'd like to invite any people that are either sat here or any people that aren't out here that you think might like to be involved to come along to those sessions to work with the artist on the actual design process for this particular owl. So hopefully you want to be involved, really.
When are they being done?
It's the 14th of May, which is a Thursday, and the 28th of May, which is a Thursday, between 1 and 3.
You've already got one of those at Elsie's, something like that.